Welcome, everyone. I'm Mike Mershazadeh.
And I'm Ashley Ward.
And you're listening to the What Matters podcast, and our mission
to spotlight top RIAs, wealth managers, and investment professionals who are redefining wealth management.
Join us as we dive into their journey, strategies, and insights.
Whether you're an investor or an inspiring pro, this is for you.
Get ready for impactful conversations on the What Matters podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the What Matters podcast, where we explore topics that really matter with amazing individuals in wealth management. I'm Mike Mershazadeh.
And I'm Ashley Ward.
Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Greg Friedman, Chief Strategic Officer at Wealthspire Advisors. He was previously the co-founder and CEO of Private Ocean Wealth Management and also co-founded Advisor Engines Junxure. Greg is widely recognized as one of the nation's top 5 financial advisors, tech innovators, and client experience advocates.
He is also a frequent speaker at industry events and the author and co-author of three books: Advisory Leadership, the Financial Advisor M&A Guidebook, and Integrating Culture in Successful RA Mergers and Acquisitions. With his extensive experience and innovative approach to finance, we're in for an insightful conversation today. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're very excited to have you with us today. Greg, let's just start by diving right into your impressive career in wealth management. Can you share with us and our listeners your journey behind building Private Ocean Wealth Management, one of the West Coast's leading firms, and how your entrepreneurial spirit led you to your current role as professor at Wealthspire?
Yeah. Well, first, let me just clarify in the introduction. I did not found or co-found Advisor Engine. We definitely found Junxure. It was a company, and Advisor Engine came along and acquired Junxure. So just want to clarify, because there were founders of Advisor Engine and they're friends of mine. So
really cool.
just want to clarify that. Yeah. So I'll give you the short version and then let you take me in any direction that you find might be interesting. The short version of 35 years plus in the industry started in '89 with a company called Cigna. Which was a big insurance company, actually. I got into the business to be a financial advisor, a financial planner. Got my master's degree in financial planning, but they didn't tell me how to get a client or how to get paid. So I came out with education and no way to get a client. So I did some research, and Cigna was just a great program. I spent a couple years there. They teach you how to get clients. So that was great. In '91, I started Friedman and Associates, stepped out, hung up a shingle. The associates were my on the way, now 31-year-old twins, 32-year-old twins.
Oh, wow. So
I didn't really have associates, but you wanted to make yourself look bigger. And then that's really was the start of I had some clients already from my work with Cigna. Off I went. In about 96 or 7, I started talking to a gentleman named Richard Stone, a competitor nearby with a larger firm, and he was older than I was, and he had a succession problem. So that's a really common theme in our industry. And so we ultimately merged to create Private Ocean. And part of the plan of all that was that I could take the company forward. After a number of years, he retired. We bought him out. And then Private Ocean, we had a good long run there and built it to almost $3 billion, to $2.8 billion or so. And then in a little over 2 years ago, we were acquired by Wealthspire as part of how to take Private Ocean forward. And that brings us to today. So I'm currently with Wealthspire, and we are the West Coast or the West region of Wealthspire.
Really cool.
Because we had offices in San Francisco, Seattle. We were in the East Bay. So we were already kind of handled the West.
So let me ask you this. Does Wealthspire still operates, or I'm sorry, Private Ocean still operate, obviously, as a, as part of Wealthspire, but you guys still operate autonomously there as your own entity. And
well, no.
how
So
does that work there?
Wealthspire is an integrated model. I mean, they're not. So our investment team has been merged in, and all that kind of stuff. They have centralized a number of the key functions, but all the offices have somewhat, I'll call it independence, because they're not trying to tell us what to look like or what color to paint the walls, and how cultural differences between East Coast and West Coast and North and South and Deep South. I mean, they're very respectful about all that, but I'll say we are looking for common approaches. Everybody involved in Wealthspire is financial planning first, financial planning led. We have some core philosophical beliefs that are all consistent and in alignment, and that's really what we share. But then you're allowed your personality and some of those personal things sort of endemic to your business, your practice, and that can be not only just within an office as well as between offices, right? So, I mean, we have offices in Florida that I'm sure operate similarly, but a little bit different, and maybe in how they market or what they're doing that's better for that market that makes sense to them. So,
real cool. And so, what's key strategies or approaches have contributed to your success in building and scaling your firms? And has it, when you had built Private Oceans, was the growth organic or inorganic?
Well, it was mostly organic up until Private Ocean came into existence. I mean, Friedman Associates was 100% literally me knocking on doors and prospecting and good old fashioned business development. And then merging and creating Private Ocean, I would say adding to that, because that's always a core component of how you grow a business. We then acquired the office in Seattle. We acquired the office in San Francisco. So now we're growing organically and we're acquiring. And then when we were acquired by Wealthspire has a very similar history. I mean, they were two firms that came together on the East Coast, very successful large firms that came together, and then they themselves had done acquisitions. And so, I mean, it's a very similar trajectory. Again, I can speak more to the Private Ocean side because that was my history. But that was our history. I mean, it was being known in the community. I mean, I would say a couple of things from a strategy perspective. I think that one of the things we did well is we really are very community focused. So early on, my passion is one of my many passions is I grew up in San Diego. Behind all this is skin cancer and whatever, is a surfer kid. I grew up at the beach, and so I just have a lot of passion about the ocean and our environment and trying to keep our earth. So I'm on the board of the Marine Mammal Center, but as a business, early on, years ago, we connected with them in ways where we not only contributed financially, but we really partnered with them in many ways. We would do client events. We would do all kinds of joint things where we were bringing them people and contributors, but ultimately that also benefited us from the perspective of community awareness. People, heard about us through that. We definitely benefited. That's not why we did it, but it also, now that I think about it in retrospect, it's still, to this day, it still contributes to our community exposure, our growth, our ability to get clients. I mean, people hear of us because of our work there, our work with community, cleanup around the community. We are involved in a number of different things. So I'm a big believer in giving back, but that's where giving, gives back to you. So it's kind of nice.
That's really cool. How's your
Yeah.
role changed? How's your role changed from, being the founder and CEO of Oceans, than being, where your role is
Private
now
equity.
as the strategic officer?
Well, the other thing I'll clarify, my title is senior strategic. I'm basically an advisor. So I'm not chief strategy officer per se, or I'm driving strategy. I'm really more of a I don't know. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to the CEO, the president, the different people in different parts of the company. Uh, I'm a little bit like a Swiss Army knife, because when you say how has my role changed, when the CEO, I'll say it this way: the way I was CEO, I had done every job in the business. I'm a very operational CEO who also has a lot of visionary tendencies, and I'm always thinking about the future and all those kinds of things. So even that is a little bit Swiss Army knife, because there's the operational CEO, there's the visionary CEO. It's not always that people have. I just have a strange uh, skill set that seems to traverse a lot of different. I can look at a spreadsheet and say I've never met a spreadsheet I didn't like, and yet I'm a people person. I used to joke that I'm like a nurse, engineer, like psychiatrist, therapist combo, who also likes to get stuff done. Well, who also likes to get stuff done. And the reason I picked nurse over doctor, I have a deep, like, what drives me and fuels me is I like to help people. I have that deep, caring, you know, I feel better when I help people feel better. So it started with helping clients feel better. Then I wanted to help employees feel better, and I wanted them to do their best work for clients, right? And that's why I've written 3 books on culture and everything. I'm so a nut about environment and how people, what their day is like and what their life is like, to be able to do their best work. And I think the core of it is being respected and have a voice and all those kinds of things that literally uh, when that then comes into the role I'm in, um, I thoroughly enjoy. There are people in really stressful situations leading teams of a growth oriented business that I can be a really good source of understanding, help, bring in resources. What do you need? Oh, I've seen that before. Here, maybe you don't want to go that way. Maybe you want to think about it this way. Let me connect you with this person who I think can help you, that kind of thing. So I do a little bit of that, which is very tactical. Strategic wise, I have great conversations, like, again, with the leadership team and the CEO about where the industry is going and what do I think about that. And, we haven't really talked about it, but kind of, again, that theme of weird toolkit. I didn't mean to be a tech entrepreneur. That was not ever anything in the cards. I always wanted to be an advisor and help people and do all that. But I always had interest in technology. And in the mid '90s, when I couldn't find the tech I needed and I couldn't find the people I needed, I literally hired a programmer because I could see what would help us, but I didn't see it in the marketplace and I couldn't buy it. And I tried all these different off the shelf applications and I couldn't. I thought, for sure this has to be out there because I can see how this will help. And so all these things today that people take so for granted, like workflow and automation and workflow engines, I was doing that. I hired somebody to create it, and that was Junxure. That became, people wanted it, so then that became a company, and then I was selling. Next thing I knew, I had 50 employees, and I was selling software, and yet I was still also CEO of Private Ocean. So I was CEO of 2 companies, and yeah, it was kind of crazy. And they helped each other, right? So the technology, being able to literally call my partner or a team of programmers and go, it would be easier if I could push a button and do this and get this report and get this done and whatever, and he would create it. Then we had 1,400 firms using our software. So I put together like conferences and practice management things, just sharing what we were doing, again, wanting to help. And what ended up happening was they ended up helping me because I got all these amazing ideas from different firms from around the country saying, well, we do it this way, or we want to do this. And I'd be like, that's a great idea. Right. So I love to say I am super amazingly brilliant, but I'm not sure I've ever thought of anything new. What I'm good at is actually executing. I'm good at actually like doing, getting stuff done and pushing it forward. But, yeah, there's a lot to be said for persistence. There's a lot to be said for, I took a lot of risk, but I never thought of it as risk because I was like, I just know this is better. And so I figure the rest will take care of itself, and off I'd go. So, and then that's
Wow.
taken me good places. Yeah.
Are you still part of Junxure at all, or
Not at all? No. So when we sold Junxure, the single biggest thing that had to happen there, different than Private Ocean, is I didn't have a client base. Private Ocean, even selling it, I'm still talking to clients. I still, it's my life's work, literally. When I got out of school and decided financial planning was what I wanted to do, I started working with people, and those people are still, not passed away because that's how old I'm getting. Well, they were 50 when I was 25 or 30. So, at some point it gets a little dicey. But all that to say, the software company was different. It wasn't intended to go where it did. I was happy it did. It was great. But it got to a point where I'm like, I really am not a software. Like, I don't want to be a CEO of a software company.
Mhm.
So that was all part of the deal. Advisor Engine was great. We knew exactly what was happening. This was all about getting Greg out and, happy to be a figurehead, happy to support, happy to be a resource, but I need some life back because two small, rapidly growing companies is a lot when you're the CEO and financial backstop of both, right?
Yep.
So the fact that I have any hair that's real is unbelievable. Just saying.
What year did you sell the tech company?
So I think it was probably around 6 or 7 years ago. So
Real cool.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Time flies when you're having fun. So it was a bit ago, but
Thank you for sharing.
Wow. Yeah. Well, Greg, you're clearly a seasoned entrepreneur with all these businesses you've started and went through. What are some of the most valuable entrepreneurial lessons that you've learned along the way? Any insights that you could share for either aspiring entrepreneurs or wealth managers in today's very competitive landscape?
It is. It's funny. Young people sometimes, everybody's young to me now, by the way, but young people sometimes will ask me, how did I get into the business and what would I do if I were them and all those kinds of things. And what's interesting is how different it is. When I started and did all this, I remember somebody actually telling me this once years later, but our idea of marketing was once we got past the first few clients, that was hard. You had to door knock and cold call and whatever you had to do to get those first few. But referrals and things like that, when you got a referral, 99% of the people, if not 100%, who would come to talk to you had never worked with an advisor. So right out of the gate, you had this opportunity to explain what you could do. You had just wide open, the old blue ocean kind of thing. Probably starting about 10 to 15 years ago, you would get, well, I've been referred to 3. So you're one of 3. And before that, you were one of 1. Then about 10 years ago forward, it's, I've already worked with an advisor and now I'm either unhappy or, something's making me look around. Why you instead of somebody else? And it goes to the competition and it goes to your point. So when I think about first of all, I would never dissuade anybody from just don't be overwhelmed about competition. I think that to throw up your hands and say, well, it's very competitive, so I could never do this on my own. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. I think that there's always a market there are always people that will want a large firm. They're going to want the largest firm on the planet. There are always people with money who are going to want a small shop, small entrepreneurial. They want a boutique. They want to feel like, they want that. So I really believe that. That's number one. Number two, I think that if you're going to do that, like I went years, my first year at Cigna, I grossed $13,000. And notice I said grossed. I had to work for probably, like it took me almost 10 years to get to $100,000 net take home, because I was funneling so much back into, first of all, I wasn't making that much, but as it was coming in, I had to invest. I mean, I had to keep putting back into the business. So you've got to have the ability, and that's not easy. I mean, I was just lucky. I was able to do it. We just didn't live on much. My wife was a nurse, and she was making, like back then, call it 60,000, which today's 200 or whatever. It was a lot back then. And that's literally that plus the little bit I could squeeze out. And we just were very austere and went into debt and did all those things. While all my friends took these jobs and were making good money and they were working their way up their ranks. And years later, they're all miserable for the most part. They're all corporate kind of stuck. And, I'll just say, yeah, I'm in a different place. So I think that I wouldn't dissuade anybody from that, but I also wouldn't say do it for the money. Do it because you want to do it your way. You feel like you have a way that you're going to do it that's different. You can explain that to people that will attract people. I mean, I used to say this to my wife. We'd be arguing over, the kids are sick, so we'd have to debate who was going to stay home. And again, they were twins. And I'd be like, Laura, you have sick time. Stay home. You have sick time. I don't. I've got to keep this thing going to try to build it. And we'd have these whole debates. And what I never could convince her of was I would say to her, for me to be successful, it's not about how many hours I work, and it's not about how much time I put in. It's about what can I do that creates value that people will pay me for. That's I can spend 60 hours on something for a client and they can look at it and go, that's it. I'm done. Right. You go in, you work your 8 hours, you clock, and I'm not judging. I'm just saying that's reality. So if you're a budding entrepreneur, make sure you're confident that what you're doing people will pay for, that you're adding value enough that people will pay, because that's where it can get dicey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a great point too, that any type of success requires sacrifices.
Yeah. There's no free lunch. One of the things that's interesting to me, and you guys are very young, so this may make a lot more sense to you, but the whole, the influencer and the internet and all these things that are creating ways for people to make money, I don't want to say that they don't require a ton of work, because I know that there are those that are very successful that also do a lot of work with it. And, but there's also a lot of people that are, not really doing much that adds much value anywhere. And it's somehow they can turn it into monetize, and then they turn it into money. Good luck. I'm glad it's working out. I hope it works out, all that kind of stuff. It's a little, but I think, again, people that are listening to this presumably want to be advisors. I think that I don't think there's a ton of shortcuts to just being really good at what you do in helping clients better their situation. That's the best way I can put it. I literally just focused on how can I help clients improve their life, their situation, their goals, whatever it is that's important to them, and taking a step back if they're having trouble figuring out, helping them figure out what's really important and how to prioritize, and then what to do about it to go in that direction. It's very meaningful to help people get that clarity, to get that comfort that they understand how they're going to get there, and all that. It's very rewarding. It's an incredible career. It's you know it's yeah.
So what do you see as the 5 years out for you in this business here?
For me personally, well, that's kind of a funny question, just because it's a lot of the conversations that I have these days with different people. I would say this. So I'm actually 63. So I feel I'm emotionally in my 20s. I'm psychologically in my hundreds. I don't know. I'm kind of all over the map. I have a ton of energy. I'm active in a bunch of different things, and I still have a huge passion for this industry and what we're doing and what we do and how we do it. So when I think out 5 years, I mean, the way I've structured, it's probably more similar to today, because what Wealthspire has allowed me to do, your picture is probably, well, you're an executive with Wealthspire, so you probably Monday get up, put your shoes on, Friday night at 5, walk out the door, and then now what they've allowed me to do pretty much from day one is I'm part of the key parts that I want to be part of, that are impactful and add value. But I have a ton of flexibility in my schedule. I'm active in my board work with Marine Mammal Center. I call it my integrated life because I have a boat that I spend a lot of time on.
Oh,
That's
cool.
a lot of fun. And I call it integrated life. So I help the Marine Mammal Center raise money. I'm on their board. I'm chair of their finance. I get involved in a lot of stuff there. I help the head of development by taking out key donors or prospective donors on the boat and take them out. It's not lost on anybody that if I meet new wealthy people that may not be happy with their advisor, all that kind of stuff, gee, I happen to be also founder and with Wealthspire. So it's connecting, it's connecting in a way that is really fulfilling and a lot of fun. And so, yeah, it's part strategic, part tactical, definitely not, grinding and hundreds of hours of time a week. And it works out really well. And I make myself available, total love being a resource, when various parts of the company are struggling with different things. And so I don't have I don't know how long. Yeah, I get that asked. I don't know. I mean, I could do that. I don't know. I could do that indefinitely. It's not, I have the luxury of not having to carry the stress anymore of two businesses. And don't kid yourself that, I ran into a friend of mine about a week after selling Junxure. And he actually is a well-known industry person who was one of the founders of Money Guy Pro and, the big software company. And we'd done business over the years. And I ran into him and he said, "Oh, congratulations on selling Junxure to Advisor Engine." And the first thing out of his mouth after that was, "You must be relieved." He got it. He gets it. I mean, I was the sole backstop for a cloud-based system that held the personally identifiable information for 1,400 firms, the clients. So do the math. I mean, if every firm had X number of clients, I mean, so, with all this hacking and security, and we did everything we could, we had, Amazon Web Service and all these things, but, it's just a strain of always, just every day knowing that, I was just always waiting for the call, oh, you've been hacked, or, oh, it's one thing when it happens to you personally. It's a whole nother thing when it's, that level. So I'm in a great spot. I mean, I got out alive, And so yeah, and I have friends that are building software companies and doing different things, and I just really enjoy being a sounding board. I all these years I always had what I called my informal board. This is another idea I would tell everybody to think about. So Private Ocean, Junxure, both companies, my informal board, both companies, they don't need a board, they were small, but I had my informal board. And my informal board was, I literally collected groups of people and friends and whatever, where I would constantly run stuff by them. I would constantly call them and go, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? One of the things that I think people underutilize is just other people's insight, wisdom, experience, and leverage it. Instead, they just get these ideas and they get all excited and they go for it. And, my whole thing was always, well, I think I'm pretty smart, and what do I not know? Like who can help me? Who can show me and tell me what I might otherwise not know or see, so I can avoid that issue or that problem? That has served me really well in business and life and all those things. It's just always, I think I've been described as I'm curious, inquisitive. I would not mistake that with lack of opinion. I'm very opinionated. I have strong ideas and all these kinds of things, but I always stress test them. I always, I float a lot of things with people just to see what kind of reactions and what I learn before I actually do something huge, or think about something big. And that has worked really well, because then by the time you go in whatever direction you want to go in, you feel a lot more informed. You definitely, and it definitely tends to affect the actual execution of what you do, because you pick up things. You're like, yeah, I didn't think about that. So yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
thank
know
you.
if that's helpful, but
Yeah. No, great piece of advice there. So, Greg, shifting gears a bit, what investments or sectors currently excite you right now? Excuse me, any emerging opportunities that you think
yeah.
hold significant potential for future wealth creation?
Well, it's interesting because you'd think as a advisor, most of us got into this business through investing and investments and all that kind of stuff. Um, I I don't think I have any great wisdom about, like, I don't get super excited about the next big thing. And what I mean by that is, I think the obvious things are, AI obviously is in early stages, battery technology, solar, all these kinds of things. I don't think there's any secret about any of that. I don't think there's any magic or mojo. When you're looking at things like that, the opportunities are huge and it's early days, which means the risks are huge and you should expect a ride. So yeah, I don't have any great wisdom for money managers to go, well, think real estate. Again, my background is actually economics, and you get more and more humble as you get older, because every time you think, well, of course, now this is how it has to be, and so this is going to be next. And I'll never forget when I thought I could forecast interest rates, which I smile when I say that even to this day, because even Alan Greenspan said he couldn't. He was chairman of the Fed for a million years. He's like, so my point is, just when you think you've got it really figured out and you're on top of something, the problem is life has a way of hitting you with something that you just didn't anticipate. In economics, it's funny. In economics, I used to laugh because everything was a formula. So anything you saw in the universe, you could apply a formula to it to describe it. And there was an economic formula, right? Lots of math. So you get there and you do this formula, and it didn't take me long to figure out that every formula had this little thing at the end called plus E. It's an exogenous factor. And I remember, what's an exogenous factor? What does that mean? And I remember learning about it. And what it means is that everything comes with this wild card attached. And the wild card is, and something else could happen. Well, that's great. That's just freaking great, right? Like, I got this formula and it's going to tell me this. And so if rates do this, and this is going to do this. And so that's where the opportunity, and blah, 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 unless it isn't. So once you get a little more humble, getting basically your ass handed to you a million times, you start to go, So, it just more and more validates, wealth creation. I love that you use that term. Everybody's looking for a shortcut. The reality is, there's books on this. The wealth creation is spend less than you make, watch how you spend your money. So don't overspend on things that you don't need to, all those kinds of things. That's literally it. And then on your investment side, build the classic, start with making sure you have enough to secure you, right? Like you can handle bad weather, you can handle events, you got your insurance in place, right? You build up. And once you get past, I've got the basics covered, then you got the next part and the next part, then you get to these, then go play, then go have some fun. Oh, I think, Tesla, let's own Tesla, let's own, whatever, and have some fun. And maybe some of those will, but once you're doing that, that's the way to do it. Because the way I would say it to clients is, look, you don't necessarily want to hit a home run, but you do want to avoid getting hit by a pitch if you're a baseball person, right? And getting hit by a pitch is basically you've saved, you've got some money, you're going to invest, and you lose it. My joke used to be the definition of investment experience is losing money and not enjoying it.
Right.
So.
Right. So
That's good.
What I wanted to ask you, and to wrap up the questions here, what's your economic outlook? There's been so many things that have taken place over the last couple of years, and give us your insights there.
Well, that's another one. So line up 10 economists, you'll get 9 answers.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you what I'm concerned about. What I personally am concerned about from an economic standpoint is just simply, I don't know that I bought into wholeheartedly this modern monetary theory where you can just run deficits to such a degree. I'm a little bit more classical than that. And what I worry about is, sort of this runaway debt starts to crowd out. Pretty soon they just have to raise taxes just to pay the debt. So I worry about that. Obviously inflation, all those kinds of things. I mean, I think not to even begin to mention the geopolitical situation, right? So you've got wars in the Middle East and all these kinds of things. These are all pretty, in my mind, a little bit scary because they can all impact economic, tranquility, so to speak. On the positive side, almost that exogenous factor thing. The reality is that, we've demonstrated over and over that we have these amazing ways of either creating stuff that suddenly comes along and changes the outlook and changes things. But that's a little bit more hope than something I can point to. So all that to say, I think it's, generally I believe in long-term, you live in an allocation, you live there. And when you say right now and near future, I'm definitely a little more cautious. I'm definitely on the cautious side and not on the, this is great, But I mean, a number of things out of left field could change that outlook, right? In a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, suddenly the Middle East settles down, right? Suddenly Russia decides, okay, we've had enough. We're going to stop on Ukraine. I mean, I would argue it would be palpable in the world of what it would do for people's, right? So those things are always out there and you can't really predict them. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It might be kind of boring, but it's the most truthful.
Not boring at all.
Not very much. It is very honest, and we greatly appreciate it. Just as much as we appreciate having you on the show today, Greg. Thank you so much for joining us, sharing your wealth of knowledge and wisdom with us and our listeners. It's been a pleasure having you join us.
Thank you for having me. You're very kind.
Yes, and thank you to all our listeners for tuning in to another episode of the What Matters podcast. Join us next time for more engaging conversations with industry leaders like Greg. Until next time, take care and keep exploring what truly matters. Thanks, everyone.